July 25th, 2018. This is MMA Junkie Radio's pre-show, the show before the show. I am Goes. That's Richard Hunter. That's
Hi.
Dan Tom. The voice you hear in your head, that's Danny Okers.
That's me.
There you go. That's how we do our pre-show. We have a dilemma today. There's no Gorgeous George.
We've lost Gorgeous George.
Coming up in a minute.
And there's a ton of MMA to talk about. But there's a lot of bullshit to talk about, too. A lot of stupid stuff, Richard. I may let you make the decision whether we go forward with it.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard about this, but we discovered a lake of water underneath the surface of Mars. Okay? Normally when you tell somebody this, they just kind of go, yeah, it's probably some stupid news outlet or whatever, because you hear that a lot, right? But today it actually really did happen. So I was telling Danny,
30.
wouldn't it be funny if, like, all those type of stories, you know, like, oh, Loch Ness Monster has been spotted, or, you know, what were some of the other ones, Danny?
Frankenstein, the werewolf.
All those guys. What if
Swamp Thing.
What if we actually did discover them and held a press conference? What would
With
that
all
press
of them there.
conference sound
Dracula
like?
coming up.
What
Stand
kind
by.
of questions would they get? Dude, we were dying. We might have to talk about that.
Okay.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMAjunkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is gonna be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communications stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMA Junkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Race and Sportsbook, this is MMA Junkie Radio, the only show that matters. I am Goes. I'm hosting today. Gorgeous George is out. To my left, our fight analyst, Dan Tom, in New York. The voice you hear in your head, that's Danny Okers. Confirm it.
That's me.
And to my right, the host of Phone Booth Fighting, Richard Hunter. How you doing, Richard?
Good to be here. It's good to be back.
Isn't
It feels like forever since I've been here. Of course, for those who don't follow closely, I was serving a USADA suspension from the show, but it was a first-time offense, and there were mitigating circumstances. So after an appeal, it's good to be back.
I've never seen the back of this.
Oh, you haven't seen our vintage fight-style poster, Frank and I? I'll tell you, as unnerving as the sketch is, you need to see the picture that it was sketched from, because we shot that, both of us shirtless, in Frank's bedroom with his wife taking the pictures on her cell phone.
Oh, that's great.
It was very creepy.
So this is kind of your vintage, what's that era?
Yeah, like turn of the 20th century, the old fight posters where the, like, Gentleman Jim Corbett he always fought in that stance. You and I are both a fan of hypotheticals, and I've asked Frank before, like, how much money to take certain fights, but to promise that your stance is going to be this the whole time.
During the fight?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
If you watch Gangs of New York, there's
Yes.
a lot of good fights like that. They're a little bit closer, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, this is funny. You guys are pretty muscular in these pictures.
Yeah. There was a little artistic license there. Although I think that was...
Richard only got a 4-pack, though, so you could tell initially they probably did a 6, and you went, they're going to call me out on
Yeah, it's too much.
Bump it
Come
down.
on. Yeah, let's be realistic.
It's good.
Yeah.
Frank was like, nah, give me the 8.
Yep. Yeah, he's always got to outdo me.
Well, we're going to have a pretty fun show for you today. We have two guests. One at 10:30 Pacific time, the other one at 11. We're going to have Sodiq Yusuff.
Yes, my new friend.
Contender series.
I saw him last night.
Great performance. We're going to talk to him. And then after him, we're going to talk to Nate Landwehr. We've had him on the show before. He got a win over at M1 Global 95, I believe it was. M1 Global Challenge 95. So we'll talk to him in the second hour. As always, the phone lines are open, 866-522-2846. You guys are welcome to call in and talk about any of the stuff that's going on in mixed martial arts. Dana White's Contender Series, did you watch it? Normally I go. This time I watched it from home. You went, Richard. I believe, Dan, you saw it on your laptop as well. We can talk about Tyron Woodley and Darren Till. Here we go. More drama. It's a tough situation. I kind of get both sides, but I'm sure you guys are going to have your opinion, so call in. That'll take place at 228 in Dallas. You going to that?
I might be. Dallas, of course, my hometown, but I may have comedy dates that conflict with that, so we got to figure all that out.
You been watching Shark Week?
Not this year. I have seen Shark Week in the past, but yeah, it's on
Rhonda?
No, I saw some of her posting that she's involved somehow, and now she's in a shark tank feeding sharks or something. Was that what she was doing? Yeah.
I don't know how they get celebrities to do that.
Yeah.
But if anybody saw that, I'd like for you to call in and talk a little bit about that, because I just don't get why people do that.
Yeah.
Shark Week or not, I don't care how big that bonus is. I'm just not trying to swim with sharks.
I'm not a fan of doing anything where the payoff is you live. Like, that's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's kind of silly. Let's just jump into Dana White's Contender Series, since that was, I think, the freshest thing. 5 fights as usual, but everybody's kind of tuning in because we all want to see what's going to happen with this Nick Newell kid, right? So we'll just start there. It wasn't his night. I wouldn't say he did horrible. He had his moments here and there, and I think he actually had a moment where he could have possibly finished the fight. But I feel like maybe the Nick Newell of about 4 years ago would have done a little better. He kind of just looked like he lost a step. And it's nothing against his opponent. His opponent was great. But he just didn't seem all there last night. What were your thoughts, Richard? You were there.
I thought he gave a good accounting of himself, and the fight went to decision. It was competitive as much as those kinds of fights, unanimous decision type fights, can be. You know, all 30-27 fights are not created equal. I thought he did well with stand-up. You know, I thought Alex Munoz, listen, this is, I mean, they didn't just throw him a tomato can. I mean, this is a team alpha male guy. He had a good game plan in wrestling him. So, yeah, I mean, Newell at this point, I think, is 14-2. Is that right? So, maybe so. Maybe, you know, a few years ago he might have had a better shot. But I'll tell you something about that Contender Series. It can be deceptive because these are pro fights with guys that have pro fight resumes, and you know, sometimes. I mean, we just had a guy on Phone Booth Fighting Kyle Stewart, that is fighting for the LFA welterweight title this weekend, and he was saying that his fight on the Contender Series was the toughest fight of his career, you know, and he's a 10-0 fighter. So you'd think when somebody's going to talk about the toughest fight of their career and they fought in World Series of Fighting or LFA or whatever it is, that, you know, a gym fight would not be the one that they would go, oh yeah, that was the toughest fight of my career. But it's not just a gym fight, you know, it's on it's on Fight Pass. It's your portal to the biggest stage of them all if you can get to the UFC. So I think a lot of credence has to be given to the level of fight that he was having last night too.
What is the psychology behind who they gave Nick Newell? Like, what's your take as far as, at the end of the day, in that closed room, did they really want him to win, or were they trying to give him as tough a matchup so that he couldn't win?
I think that they, and this is just me speculating, but I think they would have liked to have seen him win. They didn't set it up so that they all presumed he was going to win. You know, in fact, I think he was an underdog going into the fight. So it felt like they were definitely giving him the moment, And the moment was great for everybody. The moment was great for the UFC. The moment was great for Nick. And had he upset Munoz, then he would have earned a shot. And I don't think anybody at that point could have said, oh, they're just trying to set this all up so that they can have this feel-good moment in the UFC. I think they actually did, the UFC did sort of set up a litmus test to see, okay, we're definitely going to get a good moment on the Contender Series. Now let's see if we can parlay that into a good moment in the UFC, even if it was only for 1 or 2 fights. And I'll tell you, I mean, you guys had the video on MMAjunkie.com. He was very emotional after the fight, Nick Newell was, but I didn't get the idea that he was given up by any stretch of the imagination. And with things like the Contender Series and also all the other cards that are aired on Fight Pass, whether or not he ever gets to the UFC in a proper UFC fight on a fight night card or a pay-per-view or whatever, I don't know. But I think he could definitely, he still has time and tread on the tires to sort of exist within the UFC periphery, if that makes sense. You know, because now, I mean, you've got, now the UFC has a developmental program all of a sudden, and, you know, that's for younger guys. But I get the feeling he was definitely not, he was emotional, but definitely not defeated. Definitely not looking at it last night like, well, I don't belong here, you know.
Yeah, and this is coming from a kid who, not that long ago, I don't want to say call it quits, because his explanation was he was just kind of burnt out and bored of the whole thing. And now he's back. I don't know, Richard. I don't know if we'll ever see him in the UFC. I thought that's kind of your moment right there, and he knew that. But personally, my personal opinion is I don't think they wanted him to make it to the UFC. I think they were happy with him coming into Contenders and doing that. But really, that style of matchup that they gave him was not really something that would make him look well, you know. And so I think personally they didn't want him to. It was probably best case scenario, because I don't want to use the word exploit, but you were still able to kind of promote him a little bit, get people to watch Dana White's Contender Series. But I mean, I think if they really wanted to do him, he had the credentials to just sign him. But they never did that. They made him go through this.
Well, the other thing is too, I don't know that they would want to, on the downside of it, I don't know that they would want to set themselves up for a situation of him looking really bad if he were put in the UFC. And you got to remember, to the casual fan too, to somebody who's a hardcore, they understand, okay, this guy looked really good fighting in regional shows, smaller shows, you know, working his way up. Once he got to the biggest of shows, maybe it was a little too much to overcome. The casual fan's just going to look at it and go, oh my God, this guy has no business being in here. Is this, you know, if they see him get decimated once he gets to the UFC. I don't think the UFC wants a moment like that. So, you know, I think they did it the right way. And to the UFC's credit, you know, I mean, CM Punk notwithstanding, because that's the freshest thing in our memory. And I'm not comparing Newell to CM Punk. I'm just saying a situation where they wanted someone to be on the big stage because of marketing potential and things like that. I mean, you know, to me, many more times than not, they've always done it the right way. I mean, even when they brought Brock Lesnar in, giving him Frank, I mean, it wasn't like they gave him some unranked heavyweight or something like that because they wanted to build him up the way we've seen happen in boxing so many times over the years. So I didn't have a problem with any of the way that any of it was handled. And like I said, I think the great thing about Nick last night was, even though he didn't win the fight, it was a competitive fight. You know, I didn't feel like moments. Yeah, he had his moments. I didn't feel like there was any point of, oh my gosh, why isn't this being stopped? Why isn't, you know, why aren't they calling a halt to this? So short of him winning, I think it was the best possible thing for him. And like I said, it was a great fight for Alex Munoz too. I mean,
when Laura Sanko's interviewing Alex Munoz, he's not sitting there kissing his muscles, and he was out of breath. He had just been in a tough fight. Dan, Tom, what did you think of the fight? What did you think of Nick Newell's performance? And what did you think of Alex Munoz? I mean, the kid won.
Yeah, I mean, my grading the winners article just dropped, so right on MMAjunkie right now. But I'm glad you brought this up because it's grading the winners, so I didn't really get a chance to talk too much about Newell. I did, of course, but at a certain point, you feel like you're taken away from the winner, and especially if, you know, your article is grading the winners. So I didn't really touch on where I think he would fit on those articles. I like to kind of touch on where I think the guys will fit regardless if they got a contract or not, or how they'll do. And another reason why I didn't want to put it in there is I don't think it looks good for him prospects coming off of last night, because you look at it, Newell, he not just retired once, but I'm trying to pull it up now, but of course, Sherdog is just doesn't ever want to work. But I believe he wants to say he's 33 or 34 off the top of his head. He's retired already. And the thing about Nick Newell fights is I've watched a lot of his footage. Again, I've written articles and interviewed him and went through his whole catalog. And in victory and defeat, there's one thing that's clear is that he takes a lot of damage. It's really tough on his body. Whatever distinctions you want to draw from that is fine, but this is something that Nick admits himself. He takes a lot of damage, and I think between every round last night, you could just see him. Even like one of the rounds, he actually ended really well. And you could have made an argument, I think it was round 2, that he may have outworked Munoz, who kind of started taking his foot off the gas a little bit. That was maybe the tightest round, but even that, his most successful round, he was just in pain. There was just a kind of discomforting look. At least it came across in the production. I don't know how it was live. But it was a tough matchup. Now, I want to say that I don't think it was anything devious from the UFC, because if you pay attention to their matchmaking, it's something that especially as hardcores have really been pulling our hair out. When they have nice toys, they just don't know how to play with them all the time. They throw them, they throw them against really bad matchups way too soon, whether it's like a Yair Rodriguez versus Frankie Edgar, and we see kind of the outcomes of those, and that's very frustrating. So I almost would say you'd be giving the UFC too much credit, but to your point, though, goes, not only was it a tough matchup of an undefeated guy from a good camp, but what really kind of leans me more toward your side, that maybe they wanted a tough matchup for him, is that he was a southpaw. Southpaw versus southpaw matchups are real tough if you're a normal southpaw. If you're a normal and a good southpaw, it's going to throw you off. Now, if you're a southpaw where you're a southpaw because you have to, because your lead hand, your most capable weapon is you have to put out front, and Newell's a wrestler, so I'm sure it doesn't hurt there. He's a southpaw. That's always gonna make a tricky matchup. Now Newell can block with his hand that he was getting criticized. I've had conversations with the man personally about this and talking about actually how effective and how he'll defend his case. But the problem is when you're doing an open stance, you have so much time to see that power shot coming. And against a southpaw like Alex Munoz, the distance was a lot closer to get to that proverbial or at least perceived weak side. That a southpaw matchup was always going to be tough for Newell. He hasn't faced very many, if not any of them in his career. And like I said, the wrestling, well, he was facing another wrestler. So having that year to go to, and even though Newell was a collegiate wrestler, he admits himself, his collegiate record was not a good one. He didn't do well. He stuck it out and became more of an inspiration and took more of a coaching role and really did well in his later years. But he'll admit himself he didn't do well as a wrestler. So this was a really, really tough matchup to Goze's point.
Yeah, it was. And I like your point as well, Richard, as far as like what the UFC would be most afraid of is bad publicity. And that's kind of not, I don't even know if it's the hardcore media outlets. I think it's more the guys that we see up here on the big screen, right? If they see that replay, they're going to tear it apart. And they're not even going to point back to what Nick Newell's done in his career, none of that. They're just going to say, hey, there's a guy there with half an arm. He's getting beat up in this sport. What kind of sport is this? Human cockfighting. That's what we're going to hear, right?
Yeah.
But really, guys, when you think about it, would that press be any worse than Greg Hardy? Right?
No.
Or even if you watch what happened to CM Punk.
It would be better.
Like, is it really going to be that bad? I mean,
well, listen, I
get it. I get why they would be afraid of that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, then they turn around and do these other things, and it's like...
That's the ironic part about last night is the fact that even though it was clear that he was losing, it almost was a moral victory, and the valiant effort was getting thrown around, which it was. Nick Newell at the end kind of just going for broke and almost trying to get chokes, beaten and bloody. But as much as we can appreciate that from a casual to a hardcore, that was actually probably what sealed the deal as far as me saying I don't think his prospects, and agreeing with what you're saying now, goes maybe look good going forward, because you can't have that highlight reel. At least with a Hardy or whatever, you got a big heavy guy swinging an arm, knocking a guy down. We didn't really get that. Newell didn't really have too many moments in that fight they can go back and pluck, hey, but look, this guy had this moment. They're going to instead have the image that even though we don't agree with it, like you said, goes, it's going to be there. It's being factored into this equation.
I'm going to give some of the other results here. Jim Crute defeated Chris Birchler. And I wanted to talk about this fight because I actually don't remember exactly how the ending sequence, if it was a kick or if it was a punch. I think it was a punch. But the opponent drops back. So this is Chris Birchler, and he kind of like stumbles back. And a lot of times you'll see the fighter come forward and finish him off. But here Mark Smith jumped in, and I think when it was all said and done, I think the kid was done. Okay? But I thought about this. And had that fighter maybe jumped on, because I was telling George, we were watching at home, and I said, I think he might have actually done a disservice in not jumping on that kid faster, because at Dana White's Contender Series, it's not just about winning, it's the fashion that you do it. And if he would have came in and starched that kid, then for sure he's probably going to get a contract, right? First round stoppage. But because of the way it happened, I was a little nervous of whether or not he was going to get it. And I think that's what kind of makes Contender Series so different, right? As you're watching, you're figuring out, all right, this guy might have it, that guy might have it. Are they giving out 3 contracts, 2, 1? And it was the first time where I had really thought, even though it was a good stoppage at the end of the day, it might have actually hurt the guy not being able to finish his opponent. You know, in any other fight, you'd put your arms up and go, what's up? I just got my win. That's my money. But in this case, you might be thinking, man, that guy just robbed me from the opportunity of really making a statement and going up to those guys and hanging on the fence and going, give me my contract. What do you guys think of that?
Well, I think at that point you count on the fight knowledge of Dana and Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby to see that for what it was. Because where I was, as you know, you guys know from going to these, it's not all media. It's family and friends and some fans and things like that. Yeah. And so there was some talk right around where I was of people going, wait a second, the fight was stopped too soon. You know, he hadn't hit the ground yet. But to my perspective, he was looking away. He was off somewhere else in dreamland. You know, he was basically out on his feet. And so it was a good stoppage. But I think at that point, the people who are in that position to make the decision that you're talking about can see it for what it is rather than go, oh, wait a second, it's not like he finished the guy. It was a stoppage. He could have knocked him out cold. So I think they could probably see that stoppage for what it was. But in a general sense, that's a great point. You know, I mean, because that's not going to happen every time. It's not going to happen every time where 3 knowledgeable observers are going to be able to go, oh, yeah, good stoppage. It was a matter of time. One more punch, he would have been out cold. There's going to be other examples where the aesthetics of that are not going to be as conducive to giving that guy the fight contract for something like that.
But are we all in agreement that at the end of the day, it was actually a good stoppage?
Oh, I thought it was, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was too. Although live and even now, the person's take I was interested in hearing for this card was George's, especially with his ref power rankings. I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil.
Eric, right?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the other result involving George's #1. Which, spoiler alert, I feel that both refs were right in both cases. We'll get to the other one, but yeah, in this case, I felt it was fine. By the way, it was a 1 and a 2-3. That did the job, and his eyes were gone. And in the replay, I liked it because Smith, he looked at the body language and was reacting to that and following the motion of the staggering fighter like a normal ref would. But you see him do an extra take with his eyes, where he really looks and makes eye contact to see that the guy is like Richard said, and it's not there. And that's what I was like, oh, very very nice, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, and I think they even you may not have seen this, but on the broadcast they instantly patented Dana, and I think he made a gesture like that was the right call or something.
Yeah,
it happened right in front of them.
That's right.
So it did work out at the end of the day. The third matchup was Siddiqui Yousef. He defeated Mike Davis via unanimous decision. I thought it was a great performance for Siddiq. He's going to be on our show today. That calf kick was crushing over and over, and that's kind of like we talk about trends in mixed martial arts. This is a trend, I would say, that we've been seeing a lot in later part of 2017 and most of 2018. A lot of people are getting taken out with that kick. Dan, Richard, both of you guys have trained. Do you ever take any of those kicks before?
Yeah, I'm taking more of them now these days than I used to. Yeah, for sure. And the interesting thing about last night's fight and following that trend is there was a point where the accumulation of those kicks caused Mike Davis to change his stance. And what I like about that from the perspective of the guy who's having success and also from the perspective of the judges and things like that is it's actually a tangible thing that you can cite in terms of a shift change of the fight. Like when you see somebody do that out of necessity because they can no longer support that lead leg, it's something that you can really grab a hold of and go, wow, that right there is a testament to effectiveness. And we saw that moment last night.
I agree. You know, for example, early on when I was doing breakdowns over at mixedmartialanalyst.com, it was I avoided real quick even trying to factor in whenever a guy was stunned, because that's subjective. So if you notice on my stats, if I do any kind of those kind of stats, it's dropped or stopped, because you can actually measure if a guy was dropped or if you measure if he was stopped. It gets really shifty. Other words, like you said, like Richard said, you need a tangible example, which you don't really get too many, much less in a reasonable time frame to digest it in this sport, because action happens so fast. But this matchup, here's what I like about it. Tell me if you guys co-sign it. It reminded me of all the recent Justin Gaethje fights. and which is apropos to this weekend because he shared the stage with two men who will be facing off this weekend in Calgary, Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier. But it's one of those fights where I always kind of write some type of analogy in my breakdown with like a high-speed chase, but really it's just like, it's not a high-speed chase, it's more of a race, and both cars can only go so far before they fall apart. You know, this car will go a mile, then a wheel will fall off, this car will go, and then maybe his transition will start going. And you, at a certain point, as the viewer, I think obviously it sounds cheesy, we're the real winners in a fight like Davis and Sadiq, because we're just like, okay, whose parts are going to fall off, or even if it's a little one-sided, like Sadiq, you know, won all 3 rounds. It wasn't like a one-sided washing. It was an entertaining fight, even though Sadiq won all 3 rounds, because you're like, okay, you see Davis adjusting, he's making the adjustments. This guy's still got power. Well, what's left in his car? Or is he going to? Oh, he's shifting over to this part because this part's still intact. I love that. It's so compelling.
You know, it ended up being a decision, but you're right. It was a lot more competitive than the scorecards say. It was 30-27 across the board. But they were throwing so much heat back and forth that it just felt like at any second that momentum could switch. But I remember watching Sadiq and just thinking he's doing everything that they ask these guys to come on the show to do. The only thing he didn't do was get the finish, really. But, I mean, it was a beatdown. I mean, he was taking shots too. Yeah. And this is a kid that we've heard from a long time. And I think you were here, Dan Tom, one time when Ryan Stoddard from Victory Fighting Championship was here. And he was showing us some guys that have fought for him. And he even said, he goes, one day this guy's going to be in the UFC. You watch. And that's the kid. So we were watching him with our eyes wide open thinking, is Ryan Stoddard going to be a genie here? What's going on? But it turned out to work out in his favor. Jeff Hughes defeated Josh Aplett via TKO in round 1. I mean, how do you not? Great performance, right? Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I gave him an 8. I think the word I used was clinical. It was probably the most clinical performance of the night for sure, and one of the more clinical ones in Contender Series when you consider we're getting a lot of young fighters, which I'm sure we'll get to later on in this card. But it was a veteran-like performance in the sense of, you know, the guys came in saying, I can already hang with top 10, give me top 10, I'm Stipe's training partner, I'm already ready to go. Okay, hold on, slow down, big fella, let's see what you got. But he went in there and you know, I keep wanting to say, from the Saturday Night Live Jeopardy skit, what are those? I'll take Ape for 600. Apelt looked really good. He was a southpaw, real quick guy. He came out and almost reminded me like DC. Like after he closed the distance, he changed levels, starts going for like a single leg chain, and gets in on it. You even hear Bisbing on the commentary. Like he gets the double leg and lets off for some reason. And after that, he never came within a glimpse of getting offense. And you know, you saw Hughes just weather the storm and start breaking him down in the clinch, kind of like Stipe did to Hunt. You know, just using that blueprint. And I was like, oh wow, that's it's what you're supposed to do. Weather the storm, change various attacks, tire the guy out, and boom, uppercut up the middle. Yeah, that you can't ask for anything more, really.
You really can't. In the first fight of the night, Chase Hooper defeated Kanan Kawai, or as I like to say, Kawahi. I don't know, I always mess it up. He won via unanimous decision, 29-26, 29-26, 28-26. Richard, what'd you think of that fight?
Well, it was, you know, Chase Hooper was an exciting young guy. That was a fight that looked like it was going to be over in the first round. And then Kawhi, you know, I don't know if he just emptied the gas tank. It looked like he had a hard time with Hooper's ground game. I mean, once that fight went to the ground, that's where Hooper really came on. And this is a very young guy, 18 years old, I believe, and somebody who has been placed in the by the way, did this developmental program get a soft opening, or was this just something that came to the top of somebody's head one night? People start getting added to this developmental program, and I'm like, is there a developmental program? But apparently there is. At least it's got 2 people in it now, Greg Hardy and Chase Hooper, which I don't like the idea of an impressionable 18-year-old being influenced by the ways of Greg Hardy. We need to get somebody else in there to mitigate those two. But yeah, no, I thought Chase Hooper looked really good, really exciting. Like I said, super young, but boy, what a testament to perseverance at a very young age to be able to do that, and also to be able to, after you're getting smashed on, be able to shift and go to what obviously was your strong advantage in this fight, and really create a tale of 2 fights within one, a whole secondary narrative, which was that the first round would be a very tough thing to overcome otherwise. So I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, Chase Hooper did one of my favorite things, which what Richard said. He comes back from adversity, and people kind of had an issue with this because, like Go said earlier, it's a different grading scale from how the stoppages happen to how we even grade the refs, right? With this whole format, so my grading scale is kind of weird too, where you can't really not give a guy an A for a first round finish, since that is like this developmental deal. That just seems to be the prerequisite now. You get a first round finish, Dana's happy, you get in. So that gets an A. But I usually will give an A plus for guys that will come back from adversity. I actually gave a C plus to Hooper, just because he was so darn green. But for what he did, was awesome. Even if it was, a lot of it may have been due to his opponent tiring out. Still you can't take away from him. But it was just weird because he's coming out, looking like Ash Ketchum with his backwards hat, walking and strutting to the ring, and you hear all the young comments on Twitter. I think Capozza even said was Dana White drawing from his kid's birthday party to get contenders here? And I just pictured.
I think those kids are still hungover.
Picturing Dana standing outside the bouncy castle. I like the way you handle yourself in the bouncy castle, kid. How about it? But so you're just kind of laughing, and the kid, he surprises everybody. You can't take that away from him. But what I alluded to earlier with the age and the thing, it also makes it difficult when you put guys like Newell up there. It almost waters them down because they deserve to be up there, but it's a tight matchup. Whereas you have these younger guys, and I think it's too young. Best case scenario, even if Hooper looked 10 times better than he did, what do? We throw him in the Shark Tank 145-pound division? Yeah. I don't know.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, though, we're going to have our first guest of the day, Siddiqui Yousef. We'll be talking to him a little bit about Contender Series, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it after the interview, and then we'll put that to bed and get to some of the other MMA action that's been going on. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. We'll be right back.
They are the stretch marks on the underbelly of the MMA community. But hey, stretch marks are the new tats. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
Hi.
Hey.
You know what that is?
Nothing.
No. My laptop froze. I don't have to.
Let's listen to some Blink 182 then.
Blink 182 is the best. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to open this up on my trusty phone here so that I could tell you guys all about it's fantasy football season, and Fantasy Sports Radio is helping you win. Listen to the best fantasy football analysts for expert advice you can't hear anywhere else. Learn winning strategies and find out which players you need to have on your team. Be the most prepared player at your fantasy football draft with Fantasy Sports Radio Sirius 210 XM87. Streaming on your phone or at home on the Sirius XM devices and speakers. Danny, you're going to work on our guest because we were not able to connect with him. In the meantime, we're going to put Dana White Contender Series to bed. This was your first one this season, right?
Yeah. First one to go to live.
But you went to a lot of them last year, didn't you?
Yeah.
I know I've seen you at least more than two,
Yes.
right?
Yes. For those who are wondering, they're still not turning on the AC.
They have.
Oh, they have?
Times. Yeah, so
Okay.
I've been to... I missed the first one and I missed this last one, but I went to all the ones in the middle. And it's like every other week they turn it on. And you can always tell when you're watching when people start doing this. I don't even think this card that tells you who's fighting, that's not what it's for.
There were
so
people,
that everybody can do this.
There were women there last night who obviously had been to one of these before that had like these exotic, like Far East looking fans. You know, those kinds you get at Pier 1 that fan out like that big and they're like doing this with them. I mean, I can't believe some fighter hasn't done that novelty thing where they do the fan with their face on it, you know, and just hand those out and have people. In fact, that'd be a great thing for MMA Junkie. You know, you three guys.
We would be stealing it from you at this point, but
no,
you're right.
It's yours to have. You know, you could have the Goes section and the George section, Dan Tom section over there.
That would be cool.
Represent
times.
Yeah, you know, like at medieval times.
All right, Danny was able to connect with our guest. Our guest is Sodiq Yusuff. You saw him last night. He's a featherweight, and he competed on Dana White's Contender Series. He got a victory over Mike Davis. Let's bring him on. Sodiq, Super Sodiq. How you doing, brother?
Hey, how you guys doing, man? Sorry I missed your initial call.
Oh, it's no worries, man. I'm a little bit on cloud nine. I'm going to tell you why. I told this story earlier on the show. About a year ago, we were all sitting in the studio here inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Race and Sportsbook, and we were with Ryan Stoddard from Victory Fighting Championship. And he was going through a list of guys that he said, these guys are going to make it to the UFC. And you were on that list.
Nice.
And to see you kind of come full circle, I thought was very cool. And the day before, I was kind of laughing because I was saying, this kid's an underdog, but he doesn't deserve to be an underdog. And
you don't know how many people got paid off of that betting line.
There you go, man. Well, what did you think of that? I mean, you saw the odds. This is the fight capital of the world. There's a lot of gambling going on. You were the underdog. Did that piss you off at all?
No, here's the thing. I kind of disconnect from a lot of like MMA stuff before my fights, just so I could focus on the fight alone. I didn't realize I was the underdog until Vic showed up, and he was like, "Man, you're a 2-1 underdog, man. I just came in here. I just put I forgot how much money he put on me. He was like, I just put a whole bunch of money on you, and blah blah." I didn't find out until after the fight that I was a 3-1 underdog. I was like, "Man, that's crazy." After the fight, some guy walked up to me. He goes, "Man, I gotta buy you a drink, man. I gotta buy you a drink." I was like, "I don't drink, but thank you." I thought he was like congratulating me on the fight. He was like, "Man, you just won me 11 grand." I was like, "Oh, damn. Shit." I'm in a curse. But I was like, "Man, that's crazy, you know. I don't drink, but I would appreciate if he slid me some of that 11 grand, you know."
Dude, just a drink after 11 grand? I think he could have gave you a little something else, right? Like, let me throw a couple hundred in this machine or something, dude. A drink.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Give me a piece, man.
Here in Vegas, you walk by somebody and go, "Man, those are cool shoes. Let me buy you a drink." That doesn't match up with 11,000. You should have checked that guy. And look at James. There's no shame in James Vick. Before the fight, he came up to you and told you, "Hey, man, I bet a ton on you." You rarely see that. That's pretty funny, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, nah, James don't care at all. James was excited. He couldn't believe it because not just me, but Alex Munoz was an underdog, too. And James trained with him in the past. He was like, "Man, I can't believe this. This is easy money." He told every single person he knows. So I'm pretty sure that 11 grand guy kind of came from him too.
Sadiq, we were just talking about Dana White's Contender Series and the psychology behind it, okay? You don't have to just win. You have to win and impress. Get the eyes of the matchmakers and Dana White. Your placement on the card, you were the third fight. Can you talk a little bit about, at some point, did you guys sit down and strategize? You already know what happened 2 fights before. There's 2 fights after you. How did you play all that out in your head before the fight?
Man, it's exactly like you said. Like, it's a different dynamic because, you know, you got to gauge based off what's going on. Both of the fights that happened before me went to decision. Well, no, I think the one right before me was like a finish, but it wasn't like nothing impressive. But the one before that was a decision. So I already knew, hands down, even before all this happened, as soon as I saw I had Mike Davis as an opponent, I knew I was going to get that contract. The way we matched up with each other, it wasn't going to be a boring fight no matter what, unless if one of us just decided to say, hey, fuck it, we're not going to perform tonight, you know. But I already knew it was going to be an exciting fight. So match 3, I saw both matches before me. Nothing spectacular has happened. I was like, oh, yeah, we going for this, Jones. That's why the first round, if you watch the fight, I came in there throwing all bombs, you know. I'm like, we trying to get this finished. Like, it's not just a regular win. Until, like, my foot started messing up a little bit, and I see myself slowing down. I saw him surviving. He did it really, when he got up after I dropped him the second time, I couldn't believe it. I was like, all right, this guy's surviving. You don't have to win a brawl, you know. You can win a technical fight. So I kind of pulled back a little bit on going all power and started focusing more on trying to break him down with technique.
Well, you know, the scorecards weren't really indicative of how the fight went down. We thought you were controlling most of the fight. You were winning, obviously. But he had his moments as well, but you were both throwing a lot of leather. But the one thing I want to point to in this fight that I thought was very critical was that calf kick. And I don't want to talk about the first one. I want to talk about the second one. After you landed that first one, I remember thinking, I hope he doesn't throw that again because that guy is not going to be walking pretty soon if he keeps landing them. The second one you threw, what was going through your mind? Because now you've thrown 2 of them, and both of them have been just about perfect.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's really easy to say on the outside, but I work on that kick a lot in the gym. It's a hard kick to stop. It's hard to check it, because if you check it, then it turns into shin on shin. Then you're kind of just flipping the coin on who's the tougher guy, who has the harder shin bone. The best thing you could do is just slide out the way. If he's not fast enough, and the way he stands in a very strong boxing stance. It's going to be very hard for him to pull that leg back because he puts so much weight on it. And if I knew I could land one, then I could land it for the rest of the fight. By the time he started sliding it back, it was already damaged. So, like, the little bit of skin that touches at the end was still enough to cause a little bit of distance. You know, towards the end of the fight when he started limping, those weren't, like, hard shots. You know, those weren't as hard as the ones I was throwing in the beginning. But the damage was already done.
Siddiqui Yousef joins us on the show. He's a winner at Dana White Contender Series. I'm going to turn it over to our fight analyst, Dan Tom. Dan, what do you have for Siddiq?
You know, Sadiq, staying on those kicks, they were awesome. Obviously, your fight was awesome. Thank you for that performance. But those kicks, is as much as damage as they did to your opponent, that's a two-way street, no? Was that what damaged? Was that what damaged your foot? You said you hurt it in the first round, no?
Yeah. First round, I think I went to the hospital right after the fight. They said they think it might be broken, but the way the lines that they've seen on the X-ray machine, they said that might be caused by the swelling of my foot. So I might have to get another X-ray once the swelling goes down. But like I said, I work on that kick a lot. The thing is, even if it hurts me, I know for sure it could stop them. You know, it will hurt me to the point where the next couple of days might suck, but it's not going to stop the fight right there and then. If I keep kicking them, it can stop the fight right there and then.
Right on, man. Right on. Well, obviously you got to worry about getting healthy and whatnot first. But as far as your team and who's preparing you, is it just going back and preparing for whatever the UFC gives you, or is there something you have in mind as far as location, month, maybe even opponent? I mean, you're a friendly styles match. I'm sure the UFC wouldn't mind putting you in some fun matchups.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of fun matchups. There's a lot of up and coming guys at 45 right now that like to get in there and kind of swing. You know, I forgot the name of the kid with the Superman tattoo on his chest. I always liked the way he fights, so I was like, I'd love to get in there with him. But right now, like you said, my leg's kind of banged up. It's going to be basically healing up, getting back to the gym and working on developing my own techniques. I don't really focus on my opponents until pretty close to fight time. Maybe like a month out from fight time. Even after I get my opponent, I'm still kind of working on skill building. A month out from fight time is when I kind of start adjusting to them.
Steven Peterson is the gentleman you were referring to. Steven Ocho Peterson, right?
Yeah. Okay. I like him, yeah.
Richard Hunter from Phone Booth Fighting is also joining us here on the program. He's got a couple questions for you. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, hey, Sadiq.
Yeah, I saw him for the first time yesterday.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you last night. In fact, I want to tell you real quick, he sent out a very nice tweet this morning about our meeting. And Sadiq, it was, normally I wake up to, like, scary news of whatever's making national headlines when I roll over and look at my phone. So I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. You sent that out. And I rolled over to the other side, and I showed it to my girlfriend. And she looked at it, she goes, that's the way I felt about you when I first met you. And I thought, man, I got some range. I got my hot girlfriend over here, and then I got Sadiq. That's some range. Yeah.
There you go. A long-lasting relationship, though.
So yes, it's the beginning of a beautiful relationship, Sadiq. I appreciate that from you.
Yeah.
Hey, then what I want to ask you is, obviously you had a transformative, life-changing experience last night, but how do you see that affecting you immediately in day-to-day life? Not necessarily talking about the money you won, but in terms of training, do you see yourself maybe coming and taking advantage of access to the Performance Institute here in Vegas, that sort of thing?
Honestly, right now, not really. Right now, I'm gonna still focus on staying in-house, staying at home with my team. I train with Vic all the time, and we always come back into the same small room. There's a lot of one-on-one attention Vic put upon us guys that are fighting, I don't want to be bouncing around to different gyms or going to the Performance Institute where guys that know me for 1 week or 1 month. These guys have known me my whole life. They've known me from when I started learning how to punch to when I started learning how to shrimp and do upa sweeps, I'm going to keep everything in-house. The money is a little bit better. It'll give me a little more mobility as long as, like, training time is. I might not have to, like, do as much work in with the kids at the gym, but not much is going to change until I start seeing them little zeros add up on the end of them checks. Then I might change up a bit.
Yeah, and of course, James Vick has the most high-profile fight of his life coming up, a main event fight with Justin Gaethje, and biggest fight of your life last night. And I've seen situations like this before, where within a gym, when a couple of fighters who
rising tide,
yes, when they're longtime training partners,
you already know.
and within close proximity, they've got the biggest fights of their life. I mean, they can really elevate each other's game. So I know James did that for you last night, but I was just talking to James last night. He was so excited about your win. I was thinking, man, this is really good momentum for him to feel with a training partner going into that Gaethje fight that's not very far away.
100%. It's not even like, I know that you guys only see me because I was doing something for Dana, but we've had guys in 1FC fighting, guys in kickboxing fighting. This whole couple of last months has been, like you said, a rising tide for the gym, and it's just bringing everybody up. And the climax is going to be Vic right at the end of August. And man, Vic, this is going to be a great fight for Vic. Unless if Gaethje completely changes his fighting style 100%, Vic is going to run away with this one, baby.
Sadiq, we're almost out of time here. I wanted to ask you one more question before I let you go. Following your career, even before last night, I know that the road that you've had, and I know how hard you prepare for every fight. And not everybody in this sport is just the most supportive person, right? It's a different sport. Who was the first person you called up and said, I told you I'd do it?
The first man, if you have been following my career, you should be able to guess the first person I called. I got on the phone and I called my mom, man. That's the biggest supportive I've ever had. That's my biggest motivation. Called my mom and let her know, hey, I got it done. I got it done through you. And this is just the fruits of my labor. This is just the beginning. Like I said at the beginning of that UFC clip that they had, and there's just the beginning of my book. Chapter 1 is when the UFC actually begins. That's when the race starts.
If that had been me, it'd have been about 4 ex-girlfriends. I just called them one right after the other, after the other, after the other. You watching Fight Pass?
I told you I was going to do it. You suck, you suck, you suck, you suck.
That's right.
All right, Sadiq, thank you very much for joining us here on MMA Junkie Radio, and we look forward to talking to you more often.
Thank you for having me, man. I feel free to bring you back whenever you can. Don't be shy, man. My African people want to see us shining.
You got it, brother. Thanks for joining us, man. Take care.
All right.
All right, everybody. That was Siddiqui Yousef. Got a win last night at Dana White's Contender Series. We're going to take our last break of this hour, and when we come back, we'll say funny stuff, because that's what we do. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio here on Sirius XM Rush 93.
taught Andy Griffith how to whistle. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
The SiriusXM FC ICC Broadcast Fantasy Camp is back! This is your chance to be part of SiriusXM FC broadcast crew when the Real Madrid... You know, I read it like that because they put it like that because they don't expect you to know how to read these things, but it's Real Madrid faces AC Roma in East Rutherford, New Jersey. One grand prize winner and a guest get round-trip airfare, hotel accommodations for two tickets to the match, and press box credentials. The winner will be on the air as part of the SiriusXM FC broadcast. Can you imagine that? You get to broadcast with these guys? That's awesome. And you get a free ticket, and you get free airline, free hotel. What more do you want? For official rules, details, and to enter, go to SiriusXM.com/ICC Broadcast Fantasy Camp before July 26th. No additional purchase necessary. And no, we cannot enter, even though we want to.
Yeah, you can't win. Sorry.
What was the thought you were going to finish up there, Richard Hunter, before we cut you off?
You mean off air?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying I was a fan of James Vick, that I've been a fan for a long time. Because that guy, he's coming on now. I mean, everybody's starting to realize. But one of the things that I've liked about him, and actually I see this in Sadiq that we were just talking to too, is they've got they've got a personality that's conducive to, I wouldn't even say marketing themselves. I'll just say letting themselves be known. Just showing of themselves, so you can really kind of develop a connection to those guys, and I've seen that evolve with Vic too. I mean, he really caught on to not asking for what you want, and then he got to a point of demanding what he wanted, and he was very active, on Twitter, trying to get opponents, and he was a guy who had to clamor for attention for a long time because he was someone who absolutely deserved to be in the top 10, but he was kind of a lose-lose matchup for a lot of guys because he didn't have quite the name at that point that some of the other guys did, and yet a very problematic style. I mean, it was almost like if he beat you, you'd lose to him twice.
It's very much do or die for him right now, too, coming up in this fight, because you're right. It's weird. I don't want to say that he's talked himself up because he definitely deserves to be there, but he's been wanting to be in that situation for so long and not have the dance partner that now he really has to perform. And if he does, I mean, there's great things waiting for him in that division. But I don't know how he makes that weight. How long is he going to make that weight for?
I don't know how he does it, but he doesn't seem to have. But the thing is, he doesn't seem to have problems making it.
Yeah.
I mean, he just does it. And of course, part of that could be age. I mean, like you said, maybe as you get older, you can't do it. I don't know. But I tell you what, to the first point you made, he said something to me last night that speaks to that. We were talking about the Gagey fight.
You didn't roll over, did you?
Huh?
You didn't roll over, and then he told you something?
No, I didn't wake up with him. That would have that would have been the only thing that would have made it more homoerotic. But give me time. I mean, we're on different coasts, so it makes a long distance relationship hard. But no, what I was going to say about him was that he said last night that about the Gagey fight. He said, "Listen," he goes, "This is either the first of many main events for me, or it might be my only main event." Like he's looking at it, and that's exactly the right way to look at it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot riding on it for this fight, but I would imagine that a guy like Justin Gagey is a tailor-made opponent for a guy like James Vick. So I don't know, man. That fight, I can't wait to break that one down. That one's going to be nuts. It's one of those where I don't think if you like to gamble, don't gamble on that fight. Just sit back and enjoy it. Don't have anything riding on it. Just watch two guys go at it like that. It's going to be a great fight. Anyways, that ends the first hour here. When we come back, we'll have Nate Landwehr on the program, and then we can open it up for some phone calls, talk about some of the news out there, and some of the just random stuff that we've been talking about in between breaks. So we'll get to all that. We'll be back here on MMA Junkie Radio here in a second. song that George would play, and I asked my dad, "Dad, what does OPP stand for?" And he didn't know, so he asked George. And George, I don't remember what he said, but I remember possum was one of the words.
Oh.
Yeah, he completely lied to everyone. Then I went to school and told people, "Yeah, I know what it means, something, something, possum." And then they laughed at me. And that happened quite a bit in my life, Richard Hunter.
Yeah.
George giving me faulty information.
Is it still happening from time to time on occasion?
Still does.
Yeah.
He also told me, did you guys ever have the DARE program, the drugs
Yeah.
program? All right. I never answer questions. But I was doing homework one night. My mom told George, "You got to help your brother. You never help him." He's like, "All right." So I'm like, "Hey, question number 1 is, what does DARE stand for?" He goes, "What are you, dumb? Drugs are really expensive." So I'm like, "Okay, drugs are really expensive." Next day, the officer comes in, goes, "All right, everybody pull out your handbooks. Question number 1, what does DARE stand for?" My hand shot up because I was like, I actually have the answer. I'm good to go.
Oh,
Drugs are
wow.
really expensive. Even the teacher was laughing. And I got detention for that.
Oh,
He's done a lot of things to me.
that's funny. I actually have a dare story as well, but mine wasn't as funny or set up. I was just simply whispering, and the guy must have had super hearing because he was like really buff. And I think he's a bulletproof vest. I didn't know, and I was like, "This guy like really buff." I was like, "Hey, I think this guy's on steroids." And the guy mid sentence, he's addressing the class, he's like, "And kids, and this is what? No, I am not on steroids."
Oh, he heard you?
Yeah, he just
Yeah.
pointed me out. And I was like, "Oh crap!" But he didn't just call me out. He's like, "Oh well, it's like somebody needs to pay attention." And he was like, "What are you playing with here?" And he took my Omega Red, God damn it, my X-Men action figure. This was like fifth grade.
You
Omega
took
Red.
him to school, your action figures?
Yeah, man, fucking Omega Red, dog.
I was afraid bullies would take mine.
I mean,
or a muscled up cop.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Yeah.
you had to watch out for those too.
This probably explains my attitude toward
Yeah.
the police. No, I'm just kidding. I respect police officers, but yeah, I remember him just calling me out like, "I am not on together." I'm like, roid rage over here.
Damn, yeah. Somebody really was.
Though I'm questioning my own story because I was playing with Omega Red, yet I knew to accuse the guy of steroids, which says a lot about a young Dan Tom.
Where did you guys always sit when you were in class? Did you ever have a go-to?
I was a front guy.
You were a front guy?
Yeah, I like to be in on the action.
I tried to just sit by my friends if I could choose, and just sit by the funny kids.
I sat in the right corner of every classroom, second to the last desk. And I only left the first one in case they ever played that game where they ask questions and they go, "We'll start at the first person." I wouldn't be the first one to go. And if I got blamed for something, I had 2 options to blame.
Okay.
That guy or that guy. That was always my seat.
Man, that's some evolved strategy.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy to me in school.
Man.
It looks like, I don't know that we completely struck out with our guest because we still have an hour to get him on. And we're working on that right now. But
I don't know if you want to take an early break, but I'm getting after those updates happen. Sorry, I'm getting an auto restart will occur in 2 minutes, almost like a movie countdown on our show CPU. It's almost like a movie countdown, and there's nothing I can press right now.
Okay.
Just throwing that in the lexicon. Sorry to peek behind the curtains, listeners, but may or may not do a sooner commercial. I don't know.
So
That's
why don't
workable.
we do this? How long ago was that, Dan?
This was probably within about 45 to 30 seconds ago. This popped up.
Okay, so then we'll time it for the second it goes out there. Just give me a...
Boom. Okay, sounds good.
You know what I mean? And
all
then
right.
We'll take an early break. And, well, there's not much we can do here in the next minute. You got anything there, Richard Hunter?
This was the end of the world. What would you want to say, Richard?
Yeah.
Something I want both of you guys to think of. I'm going to turn 40, September 23rd.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've done that.
Think of one thing that I should do before I turn 40.
Oh, before. And when? September, right?
23rd, yeah.
Something you need to do before you turn 40?
Uh-huh. And listeners, if you want to chime in on that as well, you can call in 866-522-2846. And I think we're going to get close here to basically the ticking time bomb that's going on here on the left-hand side. This has only happened, I think, once in since we've gotten this laptop on the show. And there's no way around it.
Okay,
What
it
it is
sounded
is
familiar.
It's a laptop that USA Today provides us. And normally you would be able to turn off automatic updates, but because they program it in a certain way that where they make sure you do the updates,